When was the last time you truly felt your birthday? Not just glanced at the date or typed a few polite replies, but actually experienced it the way you once did as a child, when the air itself felt charged with wonder, when cake and laughter felt sacred because they were all for you. Back then, even the smallest details carried magic. Yet somewhere along the path to adulthood, the day that once glittered starts blending into the rest. The calendar turns, the phone buzzes, maybe your mother calls and then it's over. You tell yourself you're past that stage, that birthdays are no big deal, that they don't mean much anymore. But underneath that nonchalance, something softer hides, a quiet narrative you may not speak aloud. Those who act like their birthdays don't matter aren't detached or cold. They're usually the most reflective ones, the souls who once hoped too brightly and learned how painful it can be when that hope isn't met. Birthdays, strange as they are, become mirrors of the self. They show how comfortable we are with visibility, how we process affection, and how at ease we are with our own existence. When someone says, "It's just another day," they might mean they've reached contentment beyond validation, or that they've stopped expecting it altogether. It's a fine line between inner peace and emotional withdrawal, and these moments quietly reveal which side of that boundary we stand on. For some, growing older brings serenity rather than loss. They've replaced anticipation with acceptance, finding warmth in small rituals, steady mornings, and days that pass unremarkably but beautifully. To them, joy no longer needs candles or fanfare. Being alive itself is a celebration. Yet for others, the date feels layered. It stirs unease, not because of aging, but because of echoes. Maybe it recalls a time when they felt unseen, or when excitement met silence. So instead of silently wishing, "I hope someone remembers," and they say aloud, "It's no big deal." It isn't indifference, it's armor that looks like calm. And here's where the paradox begins. This isn't fragility, it's evolution. When emotional disappointment repeats often enough, the brain learns to lower its guard to prevent another bruise. Psychology names it emotional self-preservation, a defense learned through quiet repetition. You stop hoping out loud not because your heart doesn't care, but because it once cared too much. It's your mind teaching your spirit to stay steady, favoring calm over the volatility of hope. Yet that same shield slowly dulls delight. The heart that once built walls to stay safe eventually forgets how to open them. You start moving through your own story like a spectator, pleasant, composed, yet slightly distant, as though watching your own celebration from behind glass. Think of how often people casually say, "I'm not really into birthdays," with that effortless grin that hides a flicker of truth. Later, when the day fades, they scroll through memories, quietly tallying who reached out, who stayed silent, who forgot. Most won't admit it, but nearly everyone does this. Because to care is human, and even the act of pretending not to is its own proof that you still feel. That suppression, compressing genuine longing beneath a calm surface, has a name in psychology: avoidant validation behavior. It's the pattern of convincing yourself that acknowledgement doesn't matter simply because the thought of being overlooked stings too deeply. It often develops in people who once discovered that expressing emotion brought discomfort, or that expecting kindness led to disappointment. So they learn to want less as protection from hurt. So when you meet someone who treats their birthday like any regular Tuesday, don't assume detachment. Often it's quiet acceptance, the kind born from having made peace with the ache of unmet expectations. They've replaced anticipation with steadiness, found security not in celebration, but in surviving the letdowns that once followed it. They traded excitement for control, and control, though comforting, always costs something. Beneath the calm words, "It's just another day," lingers a universal truth. Everyone yearns to be noticed, not for achievements or possessions, but simply for existing. Birthdays hold symbolic gravity. They mark the one date that belongs solely to you, a reminder that your being matters. And that awareness can stir an intricate mix of emotions. Gratitude mingles with loneliness. Nostalgia blends with distance. Because birthdays are quiet confrontations with time itself. They remind us of where we've been and where we still long to arrive. Ignoring the day often feels like a small rebellion against that ticking reminder. It's as if by downplaying it, we can slow the march of another year slipping past. Part of this transformation comes from culture, too. In childhood, birthdays are validation that we belong, but adulthood rewires the experience. The same spotlight that once felt thrilling can suddenly feel intrusive. Many adults hover between wanting acknowledgement and avoiding the vulnerability of asking for it. That internal tension shapes how we approach the day. Those who grew up being the reliable one, the caregiver, the helper, carry a quiet script. Your joy can wait. You become the planner for everyone else's happiness, the one who never forgets another's milestone, but forgets your own. Eventually, your birthday starts to feel unnecessary. And if someone does go out of their way for you, you might feel uneasy, unsure how to receive it. That discomfort isn't modesty, it's emotional fatigue from years of minimizing yourself. Deep down, these people still crave visibility, but softly. They don't want spectacle, they want sincerity. They long for someone who remembers not only their date, but the evolution of who they've been becoming. That's the irony of emotional growth. The more self-contained you become, the harder it gets to receive affection without question. Birthdays morph into quiet intersections of memory and meaning. You tell yourself, it's okay, let's just get through it, even as the mind swirls beneath the surface. There's a bittersweet cocktail of reflection, traces of childhood awe, the ache of friendships that drifted, the relief of having endured, and a tender yearning for uncomplicated joy. That mixture of feelings is nearly universal, because no matter how independent or logical we become, some small part of us still remembers what it felt like to be celebrated without restraint, to feel worthy just for being here. Psychologists have a phrase for this kind of reflection: temporal self-awareness. It's that quiet inner audit where you weigh who you were a year ago against who you've become, tracing the gap between what you hoped for and what actually unfolded. Sometimes that comparison burns a little. That's why many people stop treating birthdays like festivities and start treating them like mirrors. They reveal the distance between dreams and outcomes. And to sidestep that emotional reckoning, we often minimize the day entirely. But that detachment isn't apathy. It's self-protection, a gentle pause the psyche takes to make sense of its own timeline. If you've ever felt disconnected from your birthday, unsure why the day feels hollow, you're not unfeeling or ungrateful. You're simply aware. You've started noticing how time seems to accelerate, how recognition no longer defines you, and how joy feels less like a crowd singing your name and more like clarity whispering in your own mind. Birthdays were never about the count of years. They've always been about the weight of meaning. With age, that meaning deepens. As children, we long for the world to celebrate us. As adults, we learn to honor ourselves. It becomes less about gifts and more about presence. Not who arrives with balloons, but whether you're truly present in your own story. That shift is subtle, yet it marks a quiet evolution few articulate. And perhaps that's why celebrations lose their volume over time. It's not that we've cooled toward joy, it's that we've stopped waiting for applause. We've begun to find steadiness in existing itself. Yet even within that calm, a small whisper persists. I still hope someone remembers. That's the essence of emotional paradox. You can feel whole and still long to be acknowledged. You can find peace and still crave warmth. That duality isn't contradiction, it's humanity. When you treat your birthday like any other day, you aren't indifferent. You've simply learned that joy doesn't need a date. It lives in the daily act of caring for yourself. That's the most understated form of celebration, unseen by the world, but profoundly genuine. The truth hidden in plain sight is this: when someone downplays their birthday, they're not dismissing happiness. They're redefining it. They're saying, I don't need external permission to feel thankful for my life. That inward pivot from chasing validation to cultivating appreciation is one of the clearest signs of growth. Somewhere along the journey, the shimmer of parties and posts loses its pull, replaced by something quieter and truer. Alignment. You begin asking gentler questions. Did I stay honest with myself this year? Did I evolve? Did I show kindness when it mattered? Birthdays shift from spectacle to reflection, from noise to insight. It isn't that people have stopped caring. Their way of caring has transformed. For some, it's a solo walk under evening light. For others, it's preparing a favorite dish or spending the day in silence without demands. The joy isn't loud or crowded. It's peaceful, measured, internal. Yet the world often misinterprets this stillness as emptiness because we've been taught to equate celebration with volume. But quiet can hold holiness too. In psychology, this is called self-concordant motivation, when your actions begin to match your values and your happiness stops depending on recognition. Choosing calm on your birthday isn't withdrawal, it's harmony. It's trading fleeting bursts of excitement for lasting self-trust. The kind of contentment that doesn't need to be witnessed to be real. Even in calm acceptance, something stirs beneath the surface. Because while many are truly at peace keeping their birthdays simple, others quietly wish they didn't have to be. They wish someone would step in, take charge, remember without being reminded. They wish indifference didn't feel safer than hope. That inner tension, wanting to be noticed while pretending not to, is one of the oldest contradictions of the human heart. Everyone knows it, that secret craving to be valued without asking, to be celebrated without revealing the desire for it. It's the eternal balance between independence and intimacy, between wanting to need no one and still yearning to be understood by someone. Psychology names this delicate balance earned secure attachment. It often forms in those who once experienced inconsistent care, love that flickered in and out or came tied to performance. Over time, they learn to depend on themselves, building calm strength and composure. Yet behind that self-reliance, a small, stubborn part still hopes someone will look past the armor. Birthdays for them become quiet experiments in connection, never spoken aloud but deeply felt. Who noticed? Who reached out unprompted? Who remembered without hints? We tell ourselves it's unimportant, but somewhere within, a quiet ledger forms. That's not weakness, it's being human. Even the most self-assured souls never lose the need to be seen. They simply become better at hiding it behind self-sufficiency. There's also a hidden paradox in how birthdays make us confront time. For some, the date feels like movement forward. For others, it feels like pressure, a measuring stick for progress. The brain reads this differently depending on our emotional year. If the months behind us were rich, the day feels like gratitude in motion. But if they were uncertain, it feels more like a review, an echo of what hasn't yet healed. That's why so many quietly let the day fade into routine. It isn't denial, it's compassion for oneself. A private promise to reflect later, when it doesn't ache so much. Because even when we downplay the day, it still carries a heartbeat. It still softly says, "You made it again." That day tends to pull everything to the surface at once. Memories, thankfulness, longing, remorse. It's as if your subconscious unrolls your personal timeline, examining each chapter without judgment. Somewhere in that inner dialogue, a deeper awareness awakens. You begin to understand birthdays for what they are, markers of consciousness. Beyond the noise and ritual, they become pauses in existence that ask quiet questions. Am I living with integrity? Do I still recognize the person in the mirror? Am I proud of the choices shaping my life? Treating your birthday like a normal day doesn't mean avoiding reflection. It can mean you're facing it privately, without audience or applause. Because not all growth needs witnesses. Some transformations bloom silently, in softer reactions, in quicker forgiveness, in the ability to notice beauty where you once overlooked it. Maybe that's what real celebration looks like, the moment ordinary life itself feels enough. Still, there's a tender truth worth remembering. Even the most resilient hearts deserve moments of warmth. Not out of vanity, but because acknowledgment feeds the parts of us that give so freely to others. The people who minimize their birthdays are often the same ones who never forget anyone else's. They're the steady ones, the early texters, the quiet caretakers, the emotional pillars who hold everyone else's world steady until they forget they're allowed to be held too. Those souls deserve gentleness. They deserve to be reminded that joy isn't a prize for usefulness. Even strong hearts need light. Even calm ones need to be seen. Not for what they offer, but for who they are. Wanting that doesn't make you needy. It makes you alive. If you've ever felt that subtle ache humming beneath your chest on your birthday, that's not loneliness. It's proof that connection still matters. It's the reminder that being human is the real celebration. The day isn't about perfection or proof, it's about presence. It's a pause to honor that you're still here, still unfolding, still shaping meaning out of the days you're given. Maybe the psychology behind treating your birthday as just another day has never been about apathy. Maybe it's about balance, the merging of gratitude with reflection, of serenity with quiet appreciation. It's realizing that emotions can whisper and still be true. Even in tranquility, small gestures matter. A single text can lift someone's heart. A short voice note can break the weight of solitude. One gentle "I remembered" can echo longer than grand speeches. For those who claim not to care, it's never the party that counts. It's the sincerity behind it. It's knowing their quiet life still leaves ripples, that even in stillness, they're seen. And perhaps that's what all of us are really chasing. Not attention, but recognition. We don't want to vanish. We want to be loved in the dialect our soul understands. Some hearts crave music and color, others crave quiet and depth. Some feel alive in crowds, others in closeness. None of these ways are wrong. They're simply different expressions of being. So if your birthday passes unnoticed, if you clock in at work, sip your morning drink, scroll your phone, and let the hours slip by, maybe nothing is missing at all. Maybe it's something sacred unfolding. Maybe it's your spirit saying, "My life already holds meaning. I don't need a date to remind me." That isn't detachment. It's gratitude disguised as calm. But even so, allow tenderness. If you miss that spark you once had, let nostalgia wash over you. Longing for your younger self isn't regression. It's remembering wonder before it was quieted. That may be the greatest gift of all, acknowledging the child still living inside you, the one who once counted down to midnight, eyes full of faith that one day could hold endless magic. That child hasn't vanished. They're waiting for you to notice them, to murmur softly, "I see you. We made it again." That's the kind of celebration that lingers after the candles are gone, the light that glows quietly in the soul. So if your birthday feels simple, don't label it empty. It isn't absence. It's evolution. It's your mind understanding that meaning doesn't always arrive with noise. Still, when someone reaches out, don't push them away. Let them say your name. Let them remind you of your worth, because you are, even on uneventful days, especially then. Maybe that's what maturity really is, realizing that joy doesn't need applause. Sometimes it asks only for breath, awareness, and gentleness. You don't have to blow out candles or make wishes. You already are one, a living continuation of every version of yourself that carried you here. And that, quietly or boldly, is worth celebrating every single year.